What is the best lens for portrait photography? In this video, we're going to talk about how to choose the right lens based off focal length, aperture, and type of lens, because these are all very important and they all directly impact how you want your portraits to look. I'm also wearing a Sigma shirt because we're going to be doing my first ever giveaway to thank you guys all for the support and for hitting our 20K milestone here on YouTube. 2 winners will be chosen, and this giveaway is not for just one, but 2 free lenses. The Sigma 35mm 1.4, which is this lens right here, and the 35mm f2. I know photography can be expensive, so whether you're an established photographer, a beginner, or someone who doesn't even have a camera yet, hopefully this will take some of that financial burden off, maybe even push you to buy that camera if you don't already have one, and get you out shooting much faster. Whatever your situation is, let me know down below how winning this would help you, and stay tuned to find out how you can win. First, let's talk focal length. If you choose the wrong focal length, you can easily distort your subject's features, ruining your portrait. Like these photos I took with a super wide 14mm lens. Choosing the right focal length can make your subject look more natural, but it might not be the look that you were going for. Now, there are so many focal lengths and lenses out there, but only a few that I would recommend for shooting portraits. Those are 24mm, 35mm, 50mm, 85mm, 105, and 135. 24 is probably the widest I would recommend for shooting portraits. It does allow you to capture more environment, which is great when shooting from further away. However, once you move closer to your subject, you will start to notice that their features get distorted. Their face becomes more slim, their nose might look a little bit bigger than it actually is, and everything almost becomes extenuated. This is a very common focal length for modern wide-angle fashion photography. On to my all-time favorite, the focal length, but the lens I've been shooting on since day one, the Sigma 35mm f1.4. I've talked about many lenses on my channel, but for portraits and the style of portraits that I like, nothing will beat this one right here. This is actually the exact lens and focal length that you'll have a chance to win. 35mm for me is the perfect focal length for what I do. It really gives you the best of both worlds and what the 24mm couldn't. It's still great at capturing the environment around your subject, but that extra 11mm does allow you to get much closer to your subject without distorting their features. So you can get those closer, tighter shots if you want to, and because it's not super wide, you still get some beautiful bokeh behind your subject. We'll talk more about that in a bit, and whoever wins this lens, trust me, you're going to love it. Both 24 and 35mm are also great focal lengths for capturing full body. This is why I love 35mm so much. It's kind of like the best all-around focal length. Now, probably the most common focal length for portraits is the 50mm. It's much tighter than a 35mm, so you get little to no distortion, and everything appears more natural. Keep in mind that because it is tighter than the other 2 lenses, it is harder to capture the environment around your subject, unless you give yourself some more space. 50mm, like the 35mm, is a great focal length, but I can guarantee you there will be some situations where you do wish it was a little bit wider. Now let's talk about the focal length that every single portrait photographer will recommend, but a lens that I never bought. 85mm. This lens is goated in the portrait photography world because there's no distortion, your subject looks the most natural, and because it is a tighter focal length, you do get more compression. So whether you're shooting with a 1.2, a 1.4, or a 1.8, you still get amazing bokeh with it, separating your subject from the background, which is all we want for shooting portraits. Now, 85mm sounds great because it is great. The reason why I never bought it is because, like I mentioned before, with my style, I like to capture a lot more environment around my subject, which is something you can't really do that well with an 85mm. And lastly, you have the 105mm focal length and 135. As you get into these larger focal lengths, there's not much that changes other than that you need to create more distance between you and your subject. Looks wise, you will get a much blurrier background and more bokeh because of compression, but you won't see much change with your subject. These focal lengths are great for isolating your subject. So great, you decided that 50mm or 35mm is best for your style. But which one do you go with? Do you go with an f1.4 or an f1.2? Using faster lenses has its advantages. Not only can you gather more light, making them better in low light, but you do achieve a shallower depth of field, giving you a lot more bokeh and background blur in your shots. Now, if background blur is what you want, you'll really only see a major difference in those wider focal lengths. Once you get past 50mm, you start to benefit from compression, which essentially pulls the background closer to your subject, making it appear bigger and blurrier. So in a lot of cases, you can shoot with a 85mm 1.8, and you might get a similar depth of field as a 35mm 1.4. Now, faster lenses are also going to be much sharper. For example, if you take a 35mm 1.4 and a 35mm 1.8, shooting at 1.8 on the 1.8 lens is not going to be at its sharpest, and that's because you're shooting wide open. But if you shoot at 1.8 on the 1.4 lens, that lens is going to be much sharper because you're not only closing down that aperture, but you're also getting closer to that lens's sweet spot. The trade-off is price, weight, and size. Not only are faster lenses more expensive, but in some cases, not all the time, but some, they can get quite heavy and much bigger. For example, in this video, I compared the Sigma 35mm 1.4 with the 35mm 1.2, and the 1.2 version produced some amazing results. But I did like the form factor, the size, and weight of the 1.4 a lot more. So it's up to you. Do you shoot a lot in low light? Do you want a smaller setup? These are all things that you need to weigh in. Additionally, the last decision you'll have to make is whether or not you want a zoom or a prime lens. All of these focal lengths mentioned, you can find them in lenses like this 24-70 or a 70-200. So why invest in prime lenses? Well, almost all zoom lenses have a maximum aperture of f2.8, which is fast, but not as fast as primes. Primes are going to be less versatile, but you do get a much faster lens with a shallower depth of field, making them great for shooting in low light and capturing more bokeh around your subject or behind your subject, which again is extremely important for portrait photography. I'd always recommend a prime for portraits. However, in my last video, I talked about the brand new Sigma 28-45mm f1.8, and it's actually the world's first full frame 1.8 zoom lens on the market, which would be an incredible lens for shooting portraits because you essentially get a 28mm, a 35mm, and not quite 50mm, but a 45mm focal length all in one lens. And you're still getting that fast aperture of 1.8 to shoot in those low light situations to achieve a sharp image and to capture that beautiful bokeh behind your subject. You're essentially getting a prime lens, or I guess multiple prime lenses, with the versatility of a zoom. Now, the moment you've all been waiting for, let's talk about how you can win this giveaway. Like I said, there will be two winners. The main prize is a Sigma 35mm f1.4 DGDN Art. This lens is for full frame, and it is the lens that I use for practically every single portrait photo shoot. The second or runner-up prize is another Sigma 35mm, but this one is f2 for full frame, and it's part of their contemporary lineup. I actually don't have this one with me because you're not getting these exact ones. You're getting brand new ones sent from Sigma Canada themselves. Both of these lenses come in Sony E mount or L mount, so the winners will be able to choose which mount they want it in. To win, make sure you're subscribed to the channel for more giveaways in the future. Then you want to head over to Instagram and follow both myself and Sigma Canada on Instagram. You need to be following or you won't win. After you do that, you'll find this post about this giveaway, and all you have to do is go to that post and tag 2 friends. Now, because we are running this giveaway with Sigma Canada, the winners will need to be in Canada or have a Canadian address because the lenses will be shipped directly from them. Entries will be open all the way up until the giveaway ends on June 26th. So you'll have 2 weeks from the day that this video is posted to enter. Once the giveaway has ended, Sigma will draw the winners and get in contact with you directly to arrange shipping. But that's it. After you're done that, you're entered into the giveaway to have a chance to win one of these amazing lenses. Thank you for all the support. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for you guys. And thank you, Sigma Canada, for making this giveaway possible.